Welcome to the Arithmetic Zone, and welcome back to our basic JavaScript series. So last time, we went a little more in depth with JavaScript and covered user input, we covered arrays, and math functions. So today we're going to talk about conditionals. So what are conditionals? Conditionals are statements that can either evaluate to true or false, and then we use those conditionals to make selections, where we choose to run one code segment or another. So based on the result of a conditional, we can choose to change the flow of execution in our program, because up until now, everything has been running in a straight line down with no breaks. So I'm just going to get rid of all this. To begin a selection statement, the first thing you would do is write if, then write in parentheses, and then after the parentheses, you put in brackets. Now, inside of parentheses is where you put a condition. So let's say 3 is less than 10. Conditional is essentially a Boolean statement. And 3 less than 10, that's going to evaluate to true or false. Now, 3 is always less than 10, so this statement in particular will always be true. And because it will always be true, whatever's in the curly braces inside of it, it should always run. So let's say console.log true. You don't need the semicolon. Alright, now I want to run this, so I want to use git bash. And this is in my CS folder, so first thing you should always do, cd, and cd desktop. And it's in my arithmetic zone folder. And then there's a CS folder inside. So now, if I want to run this program, I do node introduction.js, and I get true because I told it to print true to the output. I told it to output true if this statement is true. 3 is less than 10. Now let's do a different statement. Let's do 3 is greater than 10. Now this is going to be false, but let's see if that's true. Let's see if that's actually the case here. So again, we're going to run it, and nothing pops up. And just so we know that's the case, let's write neutral. So neutral should always run because it's outside the if statement. So node introduction.js. So we know our program works because it just completely skipped this if statement because it's still printed out the neutral. If I set it back to 3 less than 10, then it should print out both. There you go. Now obviously there's other ways to set up these conditional statements. You can use the less than sign, greater than sign, less than or equal to sign, which is this, less than and then equals, or greater than or equals, which is that. And if you want to compare if two values are the same, you use double values. Now be careful, you don't want to use one equal sign. If you use one equal sign, that's the same as initializing a variable to a certain number. So use equals to set a variable to a value, and you use double equals to compare them. So I'm comparing variable 10 here, while here I'm setting to the variable. So this double equals is seeing if variable is equal to 10. Well, variable is 2, so it shouldn't work. And as you can see, there's no true. So if I change this to 10, it should work now. There you go. And again, if I do greater than or equals, it should work because it's greater than or equals, not just greater than. If it was greater than, then it wouldn't work. So make sure you keep that distinction in mind. So we can make these a lot more complicated. We could make it so that we could use user input to set the variable. So this is essentially seeing if your variable is greater than 10. I'm gonna get rid of this now. I think I made my point with that. So now I have to write something in the console. So let's say node introduction.js and then 2. Didn't print out anything. Well, what if I write in 11? Your variable is greater than 10. It should say your number. Your number is greater than 10. So I'm going to do it again. Let's say 20, and it works. So we can use user input, and we can even use those in conditional statements. And on a side note, if you want to check if user input is like blank, then you would use the keyword undefined. So console.log, make sure you type in something. So that segment should only run if you leave the process.argv section blank. So there you go, make sure you type in something. Now of course numbers aren't the only thing I can use here. I can also compare strings, and let's say I'm gonna comment these out for now. Let's say I want to see if the number 2 is equal to the string 2. Do you think that this statement won't run? Well, let's see. It does run. So when you use the double equal sign, JavaScript does not check for the data type. It just sees that, oh, it's just a number 2, and it's just going to say console.log true. If you want to check if the two values are equal, not only in value, but also equal in data type, then you would actually use triple equal signs, which will take the data type into account. So now nothing prints, and if I try to change this so now they're the exact same, it should not work, because now they are the exact same, both in value and data type. So I showed you how you could use strings and numbers. You can even use booleans, like right here I just put in the word true. Well, true is always true, so this is going to work. And I can change it to false. False is always false, so that segment should not run. Now what you can do is you can check if it's not equal to false. Right now this is checking if false is false, but what if I want to check if it's not false? I could obviously just set it to true, but I can just reverse this statement using an exclamation mark. So you see how this just lit up? Like right now it was fading. That's just Visual Studio Code telling you, hey, this is never going to run right now. So right in the exclamation mark, now it's checking the opposite of false, which is true. So now it runs, and I can do this with true as well. If I put exclamation mark true, it's checking if it's not equal to true. Well, all that really means is that it just won't run. And I can put the exclamation mark. There's like a special operator for it, not equal to, which is that. So I can check if 2 is not equal to 2, like that. And well, obviously 2 is always going to be equal to 2. So that's not going to run. But if I say 2 is not equal to 3, then it should run. Alright, so up until now we've only been looking at single conditional statements in these selection statements. But what if I want to check more than one condition at the same time? What if I want to see if 2 is not equal to 3 and if 10 is not equal to 10? If I want to check two conditions at the same time and I want my code to only run if both segments are true, then I would use the double Amsterdam sign like this, and then put my second condition. So I said 10 is not equal to 10. If I save and try to run, now that if statement is going to check both of these conditions, and because this one is true but this one is false, they're not both true, so the whole segment won't run. But what if I want to check if only one of them is true, one or the other? Then instead of using those Amsterdam signs, I can use these vertical bars that should be above your enter key, double vertical bars. Now this is saying if this is true or if that's true. Now one of them is true, the left condition is true, so the whole segment will run. If both of them are true, so 10 is equal to 10, this will still run. because as long as one of them is true, it's fine. If you have the and sign, both of them have to be true in order for that to run. And obviously I can add even more statements, but it can get a little messy. So when you're using these compound operators and conditionals, you can use parentheses to change the order at which they're checked. So let's say I put another and let's say I put two more statements. So let's say 3 is less than 10 and -5 is less than or equal to -5. What if I want to check if these two I want to check this compound conditional and this compound conditional. I want to see if one of them is true, one of them isn't. Put parentheses in between these so JavaScript knows to evaluate those first. So the last thing I want to go over are multi-selection statements. So up until now, we've only been looking at one-way selections. We're looking, like if I write in console.log test, like we know this whole thing is true, so that's going to run. These are both going to run, because obviously, true is going to run, and then test, because it's not in a conditional statement, it's just in the regular code, that's always going to run as well. But what if I only want one or the other to run? Obviously, I can wrap console.log test into a false conditional statement, but an easier way to do it is using after the if, write else, and then put brackets console dot and move that inside. So now only one of them is going to run. So only true runs. Because what this is saying is if this is true, run this statement. If this is not true, then you run test. So let's make this false. So I purposely wrote this code in a way that it's always true, but if I make it false, let's say change these to and, change this to less than -5, so now that part is false. Now the first part of this selection statement should not run, and instead it's going to run test. So I'm going to just change that to false. So now I changed it so that it only runs one or the other. This is a two-way selection statement, and I can add more selections by making this else if and then adding another condition and else at the end. So why would you want to do this? A good example. So I'm going to say let grade equals process.argv2. I'm going to change all of this. If grade is greater than 90, grade is greater than 80, and then else C or below. So just by looking at this, you can tell based on what the user inputs, if their numerical grade is above 90, it's an A. If it's above 80, it's a B. And if it's anywhere below that, it's a C or below. Makes sense. But if I try to input a grade that should be an A, like 92, gives me both A and B. So why does that happen? Well, I inputted 90, 92. That's my grade. 92 is greater than 90, so it checks A. But then it checks this condition. 92 is greater than 80, so it's going to give me B as well. And this is else to this condition, so it won't run because that condition was true. That's the importance of the else if. So now, if I try and input that same grade, it should only give me the A. There we go, because 92 is greater than 90. This says else if, so that means this statement had to evaluate to false in order to run, but it didn't. So it only gave me the A. That's the importance of else if, and that's the basics of conditionals. Next time, we're going to be talking about loops, which is essentially repeating code. See you next time.